Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. I'm Brandon Ware. You're watching Angel 65, my home for all things music related, both my own music and music reviews. In today's show, we are starting a new ongoing series. This is my deep dive into the King Crimson catalog. I've already reviewed the debut album by King Crimson, as well as the complete 1969 recordings box set, so I'm going to discuss further my journey back into the Crimson world, which I started again in August of this year, starting with that box set. And I'm going to just briefly recount where I've been, where I'm going, and what I've been thinking of the material after going back to it, after not hearing it for quite a number of years. So being back into the Crimson locus, if you like, and just exploring their catalog again. So if my first two reviews on this channel did not make it clear, I should state right now that I'm a massive King Crimson fan, one of my favorite groups. I am so bummed that right around the time I got into them was the year they were doing their last tour, and unfortunately I didn't buy the tickets to go see them here in Denver at Fiddler's Green, so I deeply regret that I missed that experience and have never experienced King Crimson live. But going through all of their recorded material and collecting a lot of the bootlegs and surround sound mixes has really just given me a deep appreciation for what the band did at all different points in its very turbulent and storied history. I am a big fan of almost every period in the band, which leads nicely to today's topic, which is actually where the journey started. I went back to King Crimson in August of this year on a camping trip where I brought these two box sets with me, which is the Condensed 21st Century Guide to King Crimson, Volumes 1 and Volume 2. Now, these are not the first things I purchased by King Crimson. Volume 1 was a fairly early purchase. I had heard the first and second studio records when I got my hands on this and began to explore more thoroughly the rest of the 70s period. By the time I had got this, I had almost everything in it. Either live bootlegs or studio releases, so this did not serve as much value in the collection, but I'm really glad I bought it because these two compilations together are a great entry point that is very thorough into the King Crimson catalog, and particularly the live discs I think are what are most valuable here because they give you quite a good overview of some of their best live moments without having to buy the big massive box sets and sort through the Collectors Club releases, do all the DGM live downloads, etc. You get most of the good stuff from the 1969 all the way up to 2003 period on this collection. So I really am proud of Robert Fripp for his scaling back of not including necessarily everything and just picking a lot of the best and key moments which are on here. So if I had someone that kind of got into Crimson the same way I did, but didn't know the whole catalog, and I wanted to give them an in-depth overview that's still fairly digestible, these are the sets I would point them to. I'm not sure how much these go for now. I know they're out of print. I don't think I paid too much for them. I think I maybe paid 30 bucks for each of them, which, given that they're out of print and are somewhat collectible items, I don't think is an unfair price at all. So we'll start here with Volume 1, which covers 1969 to 1974. So, a quick overview of just the box itself. It's just a CD long box slipcase. You got a nice painting on the front. The track list on the back, which I will discuss in steps. Pull out the slipcase, and you have the CD storage box, which has got more paintings by P.J. Crook on the inside and outside. You got discs 1 and 2, as well as credits for discs 1 and 2. And we get this very nice booklet with a condensed but still very thorough timeline of the band in this period, including the complete discography, all of the studio tracks on each of the individual releases, as well as a listing of some of the bootlegs and various live albums released by DGM. So you get basically a list of everything that's available from this time period and an overview of the band. Includes newspaper clippings, etc. So overall, a very nice booklet with nice pictures, nice memorabilia. Again, to my point of being thorough and complete, but not so overwhelming that it's hard to get into it. It's a very easy to follow timeline and gives a good representation of what the band was doing in this period. So, now starting with the music and the selections that were made. So, disc 1 is in the studio, 1969 to 1972. So, this covers the first 4 studio albums. You get every single track on the Court of the Crimson King, albeit Moonchild is edited. There's about a minute and a half of the improvisation, and then it just fades out, which I think was a wise choice. You still get all of the key moments from that first record. Really, the whole record is key moments, so it makes sense why they would include all 5 tracks. Just editing out that little bit of fluff is not the right word, but just indulgence at the end of Moonchild, so that you get basically just the key moments and represent that entire album. So if you're buying this set, maybe you've heard the album, maybe you haven't, but this gives you basically all of it minus 10 minutes, which is a wise choice. Then we move to the In the Wake of Poseidon period. So we have Peace, A Theme, Cat Food, Groon, which is the B-side of Cat Food, Cadence and Cascade, and then an instrumental edit of In the Wake of Poseidon, which just cuts out all the vocals and focuses mostly on the main theme and the Mellotron ending. And then we go a little bit out of order here, which I think provides actually some nice sequence. It makes it more enjoyable to listen to. So we go to Islands. We get Ladies of the Road, Sailor's Tale, which is slightly edited, but you still get the amazing Robert Fripp guitar solo. And then an instrumental edit of Islands, similar to the In the Wake of Poseidon edit, where it cuts out the vocals and just focuses on the mostly the ending, particularly the cornet solo by Mark Scharig. And then we get the actual tune-up section, which is at the end of the Islands album. So after Islands ends, there's like a minute of silence, and then you get about a minute and a half of Robert Fripp talking to the orchestral musicians before they do a take of, I believe, Prelude, which is not included here, but that's fine. What's interesting is that the tune-up, instead of just ending abruptly like the Islands album does, it actually counts off and goes straight into Bolero, which is the sole inclusion from Lizard. I think that was a wise choice. You still get Gordon Haskell's vocals represented on Cadence and Cascade, but really they chose the best moment and the most accessible moment from the Lizard album, which is Bolero. I will say right here and now, even though I'm not reviewing Lizard in particular, that Lizard is, unsurprisingly, my least favorite King Crimson album. I have just listened to it recently within the last couple days, so I've had a fresh appraisal of it, and it still is just so hard to digest, and I think it was too ambitious. The result is not what was intended. Robert Fripp has more or less said as much using different words, but the Bolero is a good moment, and you get that moment on here. So that's the In the Studio disc. Next we get the live disc, 1969 to 1972. So this covers the 69 live band as well as the 71 and 72 live band. We get 5 tracks, all from the Epitaph CD box set, so therefore they're also all included on the complete 1969 recordings. We get Court of the Crimson King from San Francisco, Amana City from New York, so Fillmore West and East, Schizoid Man from Fillmore East, Get Thy Bearings from Chesterfield, and Mars, again from San Francisco. So picking 5 of the key moments and giving you a good sampling of some of the key moments from the album itself in the Court of the Crimson King, as well as 2 songs that would get later developed. So Mars kind of got developed into The Devil's Triangle, and Amana City developed into Pictures of a City, which is on Poseidon. Speaking of, that's the first track you get for the Boz era, the Islands band. So Pictures of a City, The Letters, Sailor's Tale, Groon, and then an edit of 21st Century Schizoid Man, which cuts out a lot of the vocals and beginning and end and mostly focuses on the solo section, is what you get from the second live King Crimson band, the Islands band. So 6 and 7 are from the Ladies of the Road live album. I don't own that live album. I'll explain more on that in a minute. And then 8 through 10 are all from the Earthbound live album. I'm not a big fan of the Islands era live period. I don't think it's just it's just not as interesting as what was to come. It's more of a jam band, which Robert Fripp has said, and I guess some of the members took opposition to that, but you know, that's just what it was. It was a jam band. It was very much covering the same kind of territory as perhaps Led Zeppelin, although Led Zeppelin does it a lot better with much greater power. It does not have the originality and the intensity of the live band, which was to follow. So you get a good sampling of what that band did, but don't spend too much time on it. And then we move into the second phase of King Crimson, if you like. So this next disc is the studio period, covering 72 to 74, so Lark's Tongues and Aspic through Red. The songs you get an abridged Lark's Tongues Part 1. You get most of the key moments from the track, just shortens the improv and the middle a little bit. Book of Saturday, Easy Money, and then Lark's Part 2. From Starless and Bible Black, you get the Night Watch, although, as dedicated fans will know, the first half of that actually is live, recorded at the Concertgebouw in Amsterdam. The Great Deceiver and Fracture, again, recorded live at the Concertgebouw, but overdubbed in the studio. And then from Red, we get Starless Abridged, which is just the main beginning 4-minute portion that's actually the song, starting with the bass line and the guitar note chimey thing in the middle, all the way up through to the climax. That's all edited out. A bit of a loss, but understandable. It fades directly into Red, and then you get the entire first side of Red, including Fallen Angel and One More Red Nightmare. All wise choices. It does cut out, you know, the studio version of Starless, the ending of it, so you don't get as much of a representation of what that album's about as perhaps you would think, but that's okay because you still get a good amount of material from it, including really the A side is the key heavy metal, prog metal moment, so all of that is represented. And then lastly, we have Live 73 to 74. So this unfortunately does not cover any of the recordings made with Jamie Muir. It's all stuff recorded after he left. We do get a good sampling of some of the best live moments from this period, though. So it opens with Asbury Park from USA, which I think is a amazing choice. That's one of their absolute greatest moments as a live band. A fantastic improv. Great way to start off the set. We go into the Talking Drum from Pittsburgh, Lark's Tongues, again from USA, Lament from USA, We'll Let You Know from Glasgow, which is on Starless and Bible Black. You get just that improv. Then we get an improv from Augsburg, which is, at the time of this set, was previously unreleased, but is available in the Starless box set. Exiles from USA, Easy Money from USA, Providence from Red, so you do get the Providence improv, which again is another outstanding moment. The last officially released, recording with David Cross until USA came out, and then the band was calling it quits for the rest of the 70s. You get Starless and Bible Black from the album of same name. It's actually the full unedited version from the Night Watch album, which is the entire concert recorded at the Concertgebouw, so you get the unedited version of Starless and Bible Black. You get 21st Century Schizoid Man from Providence, which again was on USA. And then we close out with Trio, again from Starless and Bible Black, but again it's the unedited version. So a fantastic sampling of really what I think are probably their best live moments. You get most of what you want to hear on this, which I really appreciate. The one thing that is unfortunate is there's just no recordings from the period with Muir before he left, although they are all of a much lower sound quality than this disc, which is all very good sounding. Trio and Asbury Park in particular, the opening and closing tracks on this, are probably two of my favorite moments in Crimson history. I think they are both just fantastic, and it blows my mind every time I hear them to think that they really were just completely improvised on the spot. No rehearsal, no this is like a jam we're going to do. They just went into it and started playing and listened to each other and developed something that sounded like a song out of it. And it only happened once, but thankfully both of those incidents were recorded and are preserved both on the original albums and here. So overall, this is a fantastic intro to King Crimson in the 70s. I think the live discs in particular are what make this set valuable, because it's a great compilation of the live moments, the best live moments from each of the 3 performing lineups in the 70s. And if you're new to King Crimson and have only heard studio material and haven't yet delved into the live material, then this is a great place to start. Because again, as I've said several times now, it's thorough but not overwhelming. So a great place to start, I must say. As I brought this on my camping trip and listened to this stuff for the first time in several years on a really good set of headphones, I was enthralled by it. I forgot how much I like some of this stuff, and to have it all compiled in a nice little box with cool liner notes makes it even more enjoyable. So highly recommended. Now we're on to Volume 2, which covers 81 to 2003. So same general format of the packaging, book style CD long box, with again some good credits, a timeline, lots of memorabilia, all of the tour dates, all of the track listing of the original studio albums, as well as an overview of some of the live stuff. For example, right there we have Absent Lovers, which was the live album made at the 80s band very last show in Montreal. There's the Vroom EP. Thrack is probably my favorite overall King Crimson album, which some may find surprising. There's the Vroom Vroom live album, which I did own but have since sold, as it has been replaced by the live material in the Thrack box set. There's the Space Groove Project 2 CD, which I had not heard any of. This release is actually what inspired me to buy it. The Construction of Light, and Level 5, followed by the last studio album, The Power to Believe. So on this set, what we start with, in the studio, 81 to 84, so we're covering the 80s band, the 3 studio albums that band made. From Discipline, we get 6 of the tracks. We get Elephant Talk, Frame by Frame, Mate Kudasai, Thela Hunjinji, The Sheltering Sky, and Discipline. So the only track that is left off is Indiscipline, but that's covered in the live portion. From Beat, we get Heartbeat, Waiting Man, Neurotica, and Requiem. And from 3 of a Perfect Pair, we get the title track and Sleepless, all unedited, all presented in their original album versions. However, at the end of the disc, we actually get some bonus tracks, which are interesting because they're not directly related to that period, except for the King Crimson Barbershop. That is from 3 of a Perfect Pair, Form Number 1, again from the bonus tracks on 3 of a Perfect Pair, and then the rest of it comes from Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With. We have Bude, Potato Pie, Clouds, Einstein's Relatives. Those are all from the Happy EP. So some bonus tracks, which give kind of an additional insight to some of the stuff that's not on the main studio albums. Pretty cool. Potato Pie is a really nice inclusion. I always found that a fun track, so I'm glad that it's there. And the King Crimson Barbershop with Tony doing his barbershop quartet is just fantastic. So a great overview of the 80s period. Hearing this again made me very excited for something that's coming up. As diehard King Crimson fans know, I'm sure, Steve Vai, Adrian Belew, Tony Levin, and Danny Carey are playing in a band called Beat, where they're performing material from all 3 of the 80s albums from King Crimson. At the day it was announced, I bought my tickets for the Paramount Theater in Denver, and so hearing all the stuff in its original studio form again made me just that much more excited. I cannot wait to see this show. It's as close as I'll ever get to seeing authentic King Crimson, and it's going to be nice to hear Adrian Belew sing his own songs again, because the last King Crimson that toured, the one that I unfortunately didn't get to see, didn't touch on much of the 80s material. They left a lot of that alone, and what they did touch, they reinterpreted heavily so that it was not the same as what Adrian had done with his vocals. So I'm really happy to hear it all again with its original singer in its original form, with 2 of the original players that played it. Speaking of the 80s material live, that's the next section, 82 to 84 live. This is mostly all from the Absent Lovers album, which, again, I had bought separately, but sold because it's now been replaced by the On and Off the Road box set. It has a new stereo mix on CD, and then it's got a 5.1 surround sound mix on the 3 of a Perfect Pair Blu-ray. I got into all of those big, thick box sets that go super, super deep because of this set. This set is what got me hooked. Even though I had heard the studio albums, I hadn't heard a lot of the additional stuff that came with it. So this really gives you a deeper insight as to what the band was all about, both live and in the studio. So on this live disc, we get Entry of the Crims, so opening soundscape, Larks Part 3, Thela Hunjinji, Mate Kudasai, all from the Montreal Forum, Absent Lovers album. We get The Sheltering Sky from Frey Juice, which is the Noise DVD, also in the On and Off the Road box set. Neil and Jack and Me from that same show. And then we're back to Montreal for Indiscipline, Sartori and Tangier, Frame by Frame, Man with an Open Heart, Waiting Man, Sleepless, Three of a Perfect Pair, Discipline, and then we close with Elephant Talk from Cap Dagde. I don't know how to say that. Don't make fun of me if I'm saying the names of these cities wrong. But all of this is covered in the On and Off the Road box set, but you get a good sampling of it here. Again, most of it is from Absent Lovers, which I think is a wise choice. It was the last show the band played before, again, King Crimson went on hiatus for an extended period of time. So most of the 80s and into the early 90s, King Crimson is inactive, but when we come back, we get the double trio lineup, which is what we start off covering here. We have 95 to 2003 in the studio. We get, the disc starts with all tracks from Thrack, so Vroom, Marine 475, Dinosaur, Walking on Air, Baboom, Thrack. We have a track from the Thrack Attack album, which is the collection of live improvs, Fearless and Highly Thracked. And then 2 more tracks from Thrack to finish it out, Sex, Sleep, Eat, Drink, Dream, and Radio 2. So a good sampling of Thrack, including some of the transition and instrumental stuff. Good sampling of the double trio lineup, which is the 80s lineup, plus Trey Gunn on war guitar, kind of like the Stick, and Pop Mastellato on drums. What's interesting here is we get no material at all from the Construction of Light, so that album is completely overlooked. It is covered in the live portion. If I had to guess why, I would say the band was probably just frustrated by the fact that the original version only had electronic drums on it. When they redid it for the 40th anniversary series, Pat Mastellato recorded a brand new real drums for the entire album, which some fans may find shocking. I actually definitely prefer, so it doesn't bother me that that album is not represented in the studio side. Instead, we cut straight to The Power to Believe, and we get most of the album here. We get Power to Believe 1, Level 5, Eyes Wide Open, Electric, Facts of Life intro, Facts of Life, Power to Believe 2, Happy with What You Have to Be Happy With, The Power to Believe 3, and 4. So you get almost the entire Power to Believe album except for Dangerous Curves. That is the one track that's missing. So I would say that perhaps they rely a little too heavily on that and give a little bit of an unbalanced perspective. If I were brand new to King Crimson, the tracks that I would definitely pick out for a brand new King Crimson person to listen to from that album are Level 5, Eyes Wide Open, Electric, and Power to Believe 2. Those are the 4 key cuts, I think, but all of the other stuff is great too, and I'm happy to have it. It's a nice compilation. Last disc, we have Live 94 to 2003, so covering the double trio and double duo lineups. A lot of the stuff from Thrack was from the Vroom Vroom double album, again, all covered by the On and Off the Road box set. So we have Vroom Vroom from Mexico City, Neurotica from Mexico City, Prism from Mexico City, which is like the drum duet, One Time from Buenos Aires, Larks Part 4 from Nashville, so we're moving into the Construction era, Prozac Blues, Construction of Light, Fractured, World's My Oyster Soup, Kitchen Floor, Wax Museum, and then we get a representation of the projects at the end. We get Sustenance from Project 2, Exchanges from Project 2, we get the Deception of the Thrush, which project plays that? This is from Eyes Wide Open, so that's a concert DVD. So we get, that was started with the projects, but we get it represented by the double duo lineup, and then we get 2, 2, 3 from Project 1. So the live disc here was really interesting because it introduced me to the double duo lineup, which caused me to buy Vroom Vroom, that double album, which is a good entry point into that period of live material. And it exposed me to the projects, which until this point I had not heard. I'd heard of them, but I did not hear them. So I'm glad that it's represented here as still part of like the official Crimson corpus. It inspired me to go out and buy the Projects 4 CD box set. So eventually in this journey through Crimson's catalog, I'll get to that and talk about that. But again, a good overview, and it was really, really fun to hear all of this. I still remember having the headphones on and sitting in the back seat of the car all the way home, listening to discs 2, 3, and 4, all in sequence. And 4 was particularly enlightening because that's a period that I'm not as familiar with, the period post-Thrack. I do not own the Heaven and Earth box set, and I don't necessarily intend on buying it just because it's too hard to find at a reasonable price right now, but I still have some material from that period, but it's nice to have a compilation of it to remind yourself that even though Robert Fripp was not particularly happy with the double duo lineup as compared to the lineups before and after it, I still think it was a good period, and they produced some of their most industrial heavy metal stuff during that period. So it's amazing to compare where they ended in 2003 with the first album and really the entire first set, and even the 80s band. It's amazing that throughout the 80s into the 2000s they had much of the same members, and of course Adrian Belew was like the prime creative partner of Robert Fripp, that the music they produced within that 30-year span was just so much different across its length. It went from this kind of new wave electronic stuff in the 80s to much more aggressive and industrial in the Thrack era, and then really straight up heavy metal on Construction and Power to Believe. So quite a dynamic offering, all covered by that second set, which is arguably a little more disjointed than the first one, even though the lineup, Adrian Belew is there throughout the entire second set, volume 2. It just shows how much the band evolved in the spurts that it was active. It's not as topical as the 69 to 74 period covered by volume 1 if you like. But overall, these both get a 5 out of 5. These are both fantastic sets. If you are new to King Crimson and want to get deep into the live stuff and have a good overview of the studio stuff without buying everything or streaming it or whatever, and as well as get some history and some nice photographs, then these are both excellent buys. These are a great starting point for someone who knows that they're interested but maybe doesn't want to go through everything separately. If you just want an overview, this is it, and they both work really together. They're both very enjoyable listens all the way through, and I love the way that it's split up between studio and live material, reinforcing the concept that King Crimson live is as important, if not more important, than what they did in the studio. Particularly in the 70s, I think that's true, but later on as well. Fantastic stuff. These are great box sets. I enjoyed listening to them both, and I'm going to keep them in my collection just because they are a fun compilation to go back to. These are things I can see pulling the live discs and listening to them in my car as over a whole live album, just because it's such a good overview. So that's my review of the condensed 21st Century Guide to King Crimson, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Seek them out if you don't have them and don't have maybe everything that's on them. Even if you do have everything that's on them, you might still just enjoy that it's a thorough compilation that includes every period of the band. That's where this journey started. After I listened to these when I got home from that camping trip before I started work again, I'm a school teacher, I listened to the complete 1969 recordings all the way through, so I'm actually just going to link that video as the second video in this playlist because that's where the journey continued after I started the overview with these two box sets. I don't see any point talking about it again as I thoroughly reviewed it and everything that's on it, as well as the debut album in my standard music review series. So, check these out. Great starting point. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Leave your comments below. Bye.